Hi, Donovan Woods here.
Hey, it's me, Tom Power.
We're here to tell you about our brand new podcast. It's called The Big Five.
So, Donovan, what is The Big Five?
Yeah, exactly. What is The Big Five? That's what The Big Five is all about. Every week, Tom and I will sit down with a special guest and dive into new topics, debating things like, what are the Big Five farm animals? The Big Five types of hat? The Big Five guys named Paul?
Martin, Revere, Mezcal, McCartney, John Paul II.
The debate is settled by a listener from somewhere across the country. It's like a game show.
It is a game show.
The Big Five, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
Yeah, there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is work.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest. Hello and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that reexamines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they transpired today? I'm Steph Hassan.
And I'm Sarah Sahagian. And this week, we are going to dive into the world of, dare I say it, one of our favorite series of all time. What are we discussing? If you know the two of us, you know that it is the emblem of prestige TV, an icon of the OOs, the award-winning drama, Mad Men. Yes, it was so different from all other prestige series at the time in a way that was hard to really articulate. It was actually the first scripted series ever to air on the obscure AMC. It didn't cast movie stars as its lead, which would become a hallmark of prestige TV later. And it didn't have a ludicrously high budget or attempt to do things like have car chases or rebuild Middle Earth. And yet, it was a masterpiece. Today, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the show. So basically, it's the 20th anniversary because we're such big fans. We know the pilot was shot in 2006. Even though it didn't air until the following year, they sat on it for a really long time. But it's been in the universe for 20 years. And also, Jon Hamm's For Friends and Neighbors is on Apple right now. So you can go watch that if you're jonesing for some Jon Hamm after this episode. I know we will be. So if you're watching him on that vacuous show, Your Friends and Neighbors, you might be a little bit nostalgic for his Mad Men days. And we're going to talk about those. And we're, of course, going to talk about the drama surrounding this critically acclaimed. Sorry, I'm going to say that again. We're also going to discuss the drama surrounding this critically acclaimed drama, because where you create celebrities, you create gossip. So, Sadaf, can you encapsulate right now what Mad Men means to you?
Oh, well, first of all, can I just say, I am always jonesing for Jon Hamm. I love that man.
Oh, so do I.
As does Bad Bunny. Oddly enough. Okay. What does Mad Men mean to me? Everything. You said it so perfectly. I genuinely think it is the best TV show there is. It's my favorite. I don't know if it'll ever be topped. You know, I loved 6 Feet Under, loved Sopranos, but like this one stays with me. I think because, especially as somebody who works in media, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Sarah, because you do too, but so much of it was familiar, which I know is tough to say considering it was set many decades ago, but you know, some things don't change. And I think also because it was just so beautifully written. And I know you're going to get into it, but Matthew Weiner, the creator, he's problematic, but what an incredible brain when it comes to dreaming up this beautiful show and these characters and their language. I will never get over the dialogue that we were gifted with this show. Like, it lives rent free in my brain. I will never forget it. Thank you to him for that, I will say. Like, I just adored it. And these characters are so special to me. But what about you, Sarah? What's stayed with you since you first watched it?
I would say Mad Men to me is a mood more than anything else.
Ooh.
There are so many scenes where people don't really say much, and if they do, it's not particularly articulate because it's realistic, right? He's capturing a time and a place. He's capturing the fact that people have repressed emotions, that they usually don't say what they mean, and they get in their own way. So it is an interesting intersection, I think, the show, the story, between, it's the intersection of an America that no longer exists. Somebody like Don Draper couldn't exist today. And the future that this person who could no longer exist today was literally a man of his time created, right? He was the linchpin in creating a consumer society, right? And yet the person who creates this is the person who is living the type of lie that you couldn't get away with anymore. I mean, you couldn't get away with that type of identity theft, right? People would know what Don Draper looked like. They would see him on social media. You couldn't get away, and you especially couldn't become a public-facing person the way Don does after having stolen somebody's identity like that, right? He's just a man of his time, right? Men like that don't exist anymore. Today in the 21st century, Don Draper would be forced to reckon with his past more so than he is on the show, where he just never fully does it. He never really processes it. And so he's just kind of this stoic, strong, silent type. And that wouldn't work today. Today, he would have to figure out what it means to be Dick Whitman. He might self-medicate with alcohol the way he does in the 60s, but he would certainly have to keep his name, right? And his identity. So it's interesting. It's the collision of the old and the new world. It's the story of our parents' generation in a certain milieu, right? It's what it was like to be an American upper middle class kid in the form of Sally Draper. I remember when my mom watched that show, she would say, I had those bed sheets. Like it was, so he so realistically created what looked like the 60s, right? He recreated that. Another thing that I thought was great about the show was that you didn't always have to like the characters, but not just Dawn, right? I mean, everyone talks about Dawn as an anti-hero, but I love Joan. Joan has some moments where she's awful, right? And I still love her, right? It's like your family. You're like, that's like my cousin. Sometimes she's horrible, but I love her.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I loved Joan. But she wasn't like a good person, right? She was very complicated. My God, same with Betty, who I know some people will hate me for this, but I also adored her. And my God, she was not a good person. Wild.
No.
Even Peggy had moments, right? Yeah.
This is part, and I think Matthew Weiner is so fascinating. So we'll talk about the birth of the series.
Yeah.
And I think that this is it's kind of a genre that I have identified of different shows that you think have nothing in common, but they're all created by people who I think in their minds were like, who is the most fucked up person in our society? It's the WASP women. It's part of this genre called Are the WASP Women Okay? Where Shonda Rhimes created Grey's Anatomy, and Meredith Grey is the most messed up person, and they constantly say it's because she's a WASP woman. Betty Draper is, I mean, her ethnicity is kind of complicated, but she's WASP coded. Completely messed up. Even something like Gossip Girl, they keep talking about how Blair's messed up because she's a WASP girl, and then she gets a Jewish stepfather, and it's better. So you had all these creators who were, none of them white Anglo-Saxon Protestant women, who were kind of fascinated with the fate of WASP women, which it seems from their writing they thought was the worst possible fate you could have. Like, this was the worst thing you could be. They really disregard the privilege associated with being a WASP woman. And my God, the hallmark of being a WASP woman on TV in this era, you got an abusive mother who hates you, you drink a lot, and you're really in love with a man who will never truly be yours. That's all those women.
When you really analyze it that way, I'm like, oh my God, that does sound like the worst life there could ever be to live, which of course we know is not true. But I love the way you look at it that way. And once you're inside that world, you sympathize with all of them in that way. And the women were my everything. Of course they were. Mind you, I want to add, because you just reminded me, but another thing Dawn could not get away with today is like having 20 different affairs.
I know.
All at once. I have to assume that's impossible today.
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult. Yes, incredibly difficult. Well, he and Betty would be ethically non-monogamous today, but he wouldn't do it in an ethical way.
Yeah.
Like, he would gaslight her into being like, this is ethical non-monogamy, but it wouldn't be ethical on his side. It wouldn't be. It'd just be non-monogamy. So it's interesting. He is he's the bad dad of the 1960s, right? He's not really, he's a terrible father, which is so funny because he really wants his kids to love him, and yet he does nothing to make them love him. It's kind of funny.
He doesn't even try.
No, he doesn't even pick up the birthday cake for Sally's party.
Oh, I know. And then Jon Hamm has that great facial expression of like utter ludicrousness whenever one of his kids, particularly Sally, looks at him like, "What the fuck, Dad?" And he's also like, "I'm doing my best." I know. Are you really? Not even a fraction.
I love the way he is so vulnerable around his kids. Like they can humble him the way no one in his office can, right? And it doesn't make him change.
Yes.
But they can really point out these little children that he is incompetent, right? Like they can, and he gets it and feels bad, but doesn't change at all, right? This is an interesting person who's full of shame and has no motivation to evolve. None whatsoever.
It's
fascinating. I know, he's just stunted. He's such a stunted character, which is, I think, the whole premise of the show. This is a man who belongs to a different era, and he's going to usher in the new era, but he's never going to fit in because he's not going to evolve. So let's talk about the birth of Mad Men. This series is set at a Manhattan advertising agency in the swinging 60s and the cynical 70s. A lot of people don't talk about how it addresses the 70s, and I feel like it captures the 70s quite well, too. So the reason it's called Mad Men is because advertising executives in the 1960s largely had their offices in New York on Madison Avenue, and they called themselves Mad Men. That is the nickname they chose for themselves. So you couldn't come up with a better title if you tried. The creator, Matt Weiner, went with it. I mean, he couldn't have come up with anything better than that. It's the best possible title. So I think that Mad Men, as we said, it's a great show because it deals so well with the 60s as well as the 70s, right? Two defining decades in the American 20th century and really in American modern history. Just 2 decades where you get so many events, the moon landing, the Vietnam War, so much changes. And while all of that's happening, people are buying more and more than ever before, right? And that is why advertising is so central. It is the defining thing, right? It takes us from a society where people are early 20th century is interesting. People are sort of fighting 2 world wars in a span of a couple decades. Constantly, things are being rationed because of that. People are just sort of grateful for their lives. And then everyone comes home from war and is told, you know what, you probably have PTSD, but the thing you really need to make you happy is a new car, not therapy.
And you know what? It's worked on me all these years later because I'd be like, yes. I just need to buy something. I'll feel better. I love retail therapy.
I know. Well, this was such an opportunity for advertisers because you had a bunch of traumatized people, right? You had so many people traumatized by war. They'd gone to war, maybe World War II, maybe the Korean War, like John. They've lost kids in their wars. They've lost boyfriends, husbands, right? I mean, women are still being treated horribly. They're getting back alley abortions. So many traumatized people who just want a dopamine hit. What an opportunity.
I hadn't thought about it that way, that the trauma was so high that it was the perfect time to corner people. Yeah,
absolutely. And you might think, okay, why was World War II so hard for me? Was it because all of my brothers went to the front and my husband died, or was it because of rationing? I wasn't allowed to buy things. Maybe it was buying things. I will buy a new bra and then I'll be happy.
Well, listen, I never buy more than when I'm depressed, Oh my God. It feels so good filling my shopping bag. Thank you, Don Draper, for that.
I know, thank you for that. Thank you for that. One of the greatest joys is actually consumerism, and you gave it to us.
Happy to do it.
Exactly. You understood that. Okay, so the origins of the cast are actually really fascinating. And so I was doing a bunch of deep dives. When Matt Weiner finally got the chance to make Mad Men, it was not smooth sailing at all. They didn't have the money to hire real stars, right? So a lot of prestige TV subsequently, it's all about getting a movie star to do TV, right? Like that's the whole draw. They couldn't do that, right? So they finally found Jon Hamm after 9 auditions. Casting his colleagues at the advertising agency and his family was a real challenge. So John Slattery, who plays Roger Sterling, and it's just a brilliant performance. He was starring on Broadway at the time, and they tricked him into auditioning. They basically told him, come audition for the lead. And so he did, and then they said, we already have Don Draper. We want you to play this smaller role, but we promise, even though it's small in the pilot, later on it will be fantastic. This will be a wonderful experience for you. So he said yes, right? But they did trick him into auditioning. He probably wouldn't have auditioned for a bit part in a pilot, right?
It's so funny. And thank God, because I love that man. Like that, he is one of the most underrated actors. Dare I say, I also hold on to the belief that his character in Sex and the City is who Carrie should have stuck with.
Yeah.
Should have given more time. I don't care that he had a kink for peeing. I'm okay with that.
That's normal. I mean, the 21st century, we've now realized that almost every man does. So that's fine.
It's so true. He's so sexy. He stayed that way. Oh,
yeah,
we love
absolutely.
him.
Well, they also cast Christina Hendricks, who originally auditioned for Peggy. So that's interesting too. And then, I mean, you see her and she can't do Peggy, right? It's just, she can't. She's too striking. It doesn't work.
No.
But Weiner realized that her talents, Weiner. Sometimes I think of him as Weiner, but Matthew Weiner realized her talents were better. He realized her talents were better suited to playing the smart, sexy, and underappreciated Joan Holloway, right? Who is one of the most, I would say, long-suffering characters on the show.
Yes.
She really is long-suffering. This woman, until the very end, can't catch a break. Like, is just constantly having horrible things happen to her. And I know everyone says Betty is long-suffering. It's a toss-up who suffers more. They both suffer a lot.
Yeah, they do. It's really brutal. God, and I love Joan so much, but it's true. And just to set it up too, in case you're one of the few who are listening and haven't watched the show, she starts out as an office manager, essentially. Yeah. And then graduates and eventually becomes a partner. I mean, they all kind of do in the end. But
the way she becomes a partner, I'm not going to spoil it for you, is one of the most devastating things that happens to her. And one of the reasons why it's devastating is not just because of the sexual violence she has to go through. I don't want to tell you too much, but the fact that as much as the good guys in the office are telling her you don't have to do it, they're not saying we'll make you a partner anyway. This is literally something she has to do. And that's the worst part.
Yeah, that narrative still sits a little tough with me. Oh God, yeah, I hated that.
Exactly. Yeah. I hate it too. And it's awful because at the end of the day, would I say she shouldn't have done that? No, obviously she had to do that. That was the only way to get what she deserved in life. It's just awful that was what the length she had to go to.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the message that they're sending across is so clear and it's so accurate to the time. And so I understood why they went that way. And she's also the kind of character who would do that. Like she would understand this is the only way right now in this context, in this place for me to get ahead. And I can't waste any more time. I feel like she was so conscious of that at that point. It's really fascinating. But
she is the smartest character on the show. And I think that people don't always appreciate that. Like she is, even when we meet her as the office manager, that's a new title that they didn't have before, right? They used to call her head secretary. So she's constantly forcing them to evolve to make room for the fact that she's smarter than they are and more capable than they are, which is wonderful. And I mean, yes, other characters in the show are brilliant at what they do. She's definitely the most all-round intelligent, I would say, on the show.
She's so smart. And that's why she telegraphs as a little evil sometimes. I don't think she was, but yes, exactly. And I think why she and Dawn had such electric chemistry when they would give us those specific scenes here and there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But also why she's the only one smart enough not to sleep with him, because she knows he's no good.
You got it. There you go. And that it would only destroy that relationship and connection. It's one of the hottest little minutes of sexual tension we get in any show of any era, I think.
And it's interesting because Dawn and Joan, I would say, Dawn never truly speaks to Peggy like an equal. He speaks to her kind of sometimes like a daughter, I would say, and then sometimes like a wife, but never like an equal. He speaks to Joan like an equal. And that's why their scenes are so interesting, because it's the one time you get to see him speak to anyone, man or woman, as an equal, because he knows they're on the same footing. They know what's what. If anything, she's smarter than he is, and he gets that. And he has respect for her, where I don't think that character has respect for any other person on the planet.
God, it's so true. It's so true. And even she, I don't know if she does have a bit of respect for him, but she can see through him. And he knows that. And I like that.
I think she has respect for him as an advertising genius and nothing else. And I think he almost likes that. She sees him for what he is. It's like, you are brilliant at this. And so I respect you. I respect your talent. But as a person, no, you're awful.
He's turned on by it. What a shock.
Well, it's all goes back to his mother wound. At the end of the day, he just wants a mom. And honestly, if Joan had taken pity on him and decided to couple up with him, maybe he would have been healed. Not that that would have been her job to do that.
Well, I mean, there you go. Like another key tidbit. And listen, again, spoiler alert for the millionth time, but his mother was a sex worker. He didn't know much about his dad. He grew up in a brothel. It goes deep, and when I say it now, it's almost kind of funny. But there's reasons for the way he is, right? Of course.
Yes, of course there are reasons for the way he is. And one of those reasons is that he refuses to go to therapy. I mean, that's one of the reasons. And yeah, there are so many reasons. It's the intersection of, a childhood that was hard and also just extreme male entitlement that was normal in that era, right? Just that was normalized. So when Mad Men finally debuted in 2007, the drama about the world of womanizing secretly depressed 1960s advertising executives was not an instant hit. And I think it's important to mention that. It was kind of a slow burn hit, but it was an instant critical darling. The New York Times, Alessandra Stanley, we've mentioned her before. We're pretty critical of her, but she liked it. She liked it. It's one of the few things I think this woman has liked.
Finally, Miss Stanley.
Finally, she's on the right side of history. She praised it for, quote, luxuriating in the not so distant past. And I think it does. I think it actually understands the past, and it understands that for these people, it was their present, which is something historical fiction doesn't get. Time magazine also referred to Mad Men as, quote, one of the best TV dramas in years. And of course, it was a huge surprise that such an excellent drama came from AMC, right? They'd never produced scripted TV before. So it came out of nowhere, and it was this success story. And that's why I think in some ways it's the ultimate prestige TV story. It's this arc. It's that if you can find a good story, anybody can be a star, any of the actors, any of the showrunners, but also any network can just catapult itself and become more prestigious, right? That anyone can do this. And so it's ironic because this is kind of like a show about the American dream and how the American dream isn't real, but the show kind of achieves the American dream, right? Come out of nowhere, just be good at what you do and you will be successful and you will be honored.
Well, I think it's not surprising because the American dream is such a cyclical concept, right? Like we're never going to lose it. It's always going to be there. In fact, in some ways, it's being reinvigorated the harder we go through whatever we're going through. Right now, that's a long, long list. Climate change, potential apocalypse in our time, Trump, like it's endless. In some weird ways, because I haven't done a proper rewatch since my first watch because it's such a heavy show. And I often think like if I do it now, it's gonna hit me even harder because of what's happening. No, if I do it now, it's gonna hit me even harder. It's just always relevant.
Yeah, it is so relevant. You're absolutely right. And one thing that Matt Weiner was really good at doing, I have to give him credit for, was mirroring contemporary debates with the discussion kids and adults were having at the time. There's a really memorable scene that makes you hate Betty a little bit, but it is realistic, where Betty is talking to her housekeeper, and her housekeeper is racialized. And Betty is coming off as kind of like, I would say a centrist white person at the time, where she's giving this argument that like she believes in civil rights, but it's causing so much chaos that maybe it's not the right time for them, basically telling this woman, you got to wait, which at the time the show debuted was the conversation we were having about gay marriage, right? And so he's very clever at showing you that these conversations come up again and again. Every marginalized group hears these arguments. Every person who thinks they're a good person, who's sort of center right, makes these arguments, but they're always trash arguments, right? Like the same people who are saying wait for gay marriage were the same people who were telling Black people wait for civil rights. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. So he's subtle, but it's smart. And I do think that this man, while he's problematic, understands American history.
Yeah, to like a wild degree in a very impressive way when it comes to reliving the past. The only show I've seen who can nail it and I'm not even at that degree, but close enough, is For All Mankind. I don't know if you've watched it, Sarah, but it's another Apple show. I've recently spent the past month like going deeply through it.
I need to watch it.
And you will like it. You will love it. If you're even mildly intrigued by the space race, it's fascinating. And I don't know how it does it. I think the people, just like Matthew Weiner, who created it, just understand that history so deeply, like it lives in their DNA, that they know how to telegraph and predict the next 10 years, the next decade, because they essentially rewrite it, assuming that the US would have won the space race, right? So it's fascinating. But I've never seen a creator be able to relive the past in the way that this show does. Like, it's just incomparable in that way.
Yeah. I mean, he could have been a top historian, actually, if he hadn't become a showrunner. This is somebody who really gets the past and how it informs the present. I mean, it's brilliant. In some ways, the show taught me more about American history than the American history courses I took in university. I mean,
very well said. You know what, me too. He would have been very good at some historical fiction too. Or he could still be.
He could still be. I mean, we'll talk about later what happened to him. He's been pretty much canceled. But I mean, the show... It is a legacy, and it does live on. I guess we can separate the art from the artist. So one interesting thing that happened, the show was critically acclaimed. It won the Emmy for Best Drama in its first season, which is pretty impressive, right? I mean, Jon Hamm himself would have to wait until the last season. They made him wait, but the show got countless Emmy nominations. Everyone seemed to love it. And then also everybody on the show became a huge star. So Jon Hamm, as talented as he was pretty much no one. He was struggling. He was auditioning for things like Dawson's Creek. They were telling him he looked too old to play one of the kids, even though he was the right age. He was doing things like that. He was having a hard time because he's somebody who has always looked 40. And now he's in his 50s. He still looks 40. And when he was 20, he looked 40.
And he also, I don't know if he did have this, but in some ways I feel like he was too handsome. He had to have been for certain roles.
Yeah. He has to play the lead for sure. And so because he was untested, you might feel antsy putting him in as the lead, but you can't see him in as anything else. And so he got lucky. This was the perfect show for him because they didn't have the money to cast a star. They needed to cast somebody who was pretty much unknown, but they needed somebody with charisma. They needed somebody who had just an it factor. That, as much as I love Jon Slattery could not have played this character. He just could not have played this character.
No, it's hard for me to imagine anybody else. I remember Gabriel Macht. I don't know if he was second or he was very close to beating out Jon Hamm for this role. Gabriel Macht being the lead of Suits. He played Harvey Specter. I do think maybe he could have done it, but I think basically he would have just been Harvey Specter. Harvey Specter is a version of Don Draper, right?
Yeah.
But I think what Jon Hamm gives it is real depth and substance, and you really do believe him. Like, it really feels like this is a womanizer from the 60s and 70s breathing life back into this beautiful story. I'm so thankful. Like, I watch Jon Hamm in anything, including Your Friends and Neighbors, and I sit there and I think, oh, an actor of our time. Like, he is so good. He's so good. And I'm always so thankful for this show for giving him to us. I know I'm going hard, but listen, the man didn't get an Emmy for so long and it broke my heart. And in some ways, I do think it's partly why Mad Men stayed at that level that it did on the pedestal, because sometimes when you have a show that wins the Emmy or the Emmy, let's say a franchise winning an Oscar year after year, Lord of the Rings, aka, it kind of loses its sheen a little bit and a little bit of its respect because people get tired. So maybe it did get a little bit of that, but I just think there's not quite a lot of actors like Jon Hamm. Like, I would put him on the level of Jeremy Strong. Like, I think he's just so I just love him, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's funny that you talk about Succession, because I think that's the only other show we've had in the 21st century where the casting was equally fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they had a lot more money. Mad Men, it really shows you how remarkable it is because they had no money and yet have this perfect cast, right? Just this fabulous cast with no resources, especially at first. Later on, people wanted to join because it was a prestige project and everyone knew and it would elevate you. But just the fact that they were able to find Christina Hendricks, that they cast Elizabeth Moss so perfectly, that they had Jon Slattery in this role, and that they found Jon Hamm. It's a miracle. It is really just lightning in a bottle.
Shout out to the casting director. Yeah. My God.
Just perfect work. And the fact that AMC was able to do this is remarkable. Such a success story.
Oh, You know what's wild, Sarah? And we've talked about this so many times, you and I, but like, I remember my first time watching Mad Men. This is how much this show means to me. Like, years ago, my God, I can remember the day. Because I'm an infamous channel surfer. And if you're a channel surfer, you probably came across AMC's ads because I remember, I believe it was channel 51 or something here at the time.
I think
Rogers. So. And I would flip and I would see these ads for this new network. And I was like, and as a TV obsessive, I was so fascinated. And I remember they used Amy Winehouse in the trailer, and it was, of course, so apt. And the trailer really just establishes that it's about a bunch of advertising people, but also a man having an affair. I was like, done. Sign me up. I can't wait. Nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. Nobody had seen the ads. I remember it was a very hot summer day. I was sweating. And I was like, wait a second. I just noticed AMC not only debuted this show, and I can't remember if they did this right off the bat because the execs talked about it later, but they just binged. They had the entire season ready for you to watch basically at some point. And the network would just keep playing it, because it didn't have anything.
I didn't have anything else.
And that's how I ended up watching it. So I'm not a binger, and I kind of ended up binging it in a couple days because it was just on repeat. And then I would rewatch them. I was like, this show. And I thought there was no way it would get a second season, but of course it did. It was the only show on the network. And then if you guys don't know, because you may be thinking AMC, I know that because of course a lot of these live now on streaming networks, but we had The Walking Dead, which had a gorgeous first season. We had, of course, Breaking Bad, Infamous. Like, I think AMC really did chart its own course in so many ways. Like, I know we've got HBO and that's considered the gold standard. I think AMC became the gold standard.
For that time, yeah, they invented this new era of prestige TV. I mean, of course, there was the influence of The Sopranos, and Matt Weiner himself, trained on The Sopranos, right? But they just take it to a new level, television as art. Anyway, it's remarkable what they did. They were the best at it for a time. I wouldn't say they are anymore, but you know what? We're not in the prestige TV era anymore, right?
That's
we're kind of
true.
in the post-peak TV era because we graduated from prestige TV to peak TV, and now we're in this, I don't know, this chaotic era where TV is bad, right? Most TV is bad.
I know, it really depresses me. I became like a slut for AMC because like I watched Rubicon. Did you watch Rubicon, Sarah? Nobody watched Rubicon.
I watched a bit of it. I did not finish, but good
did.
for you for finishing
it. I did. I wanted to give a shout out to one series that they have that's wonderful and it's still going, and I don't think it gets enough viewers, but it's called Dark Winds. I don't know if you watched that one, Sarah, but it's so good. It's
okay,
like
I'll have to watch it.
Little bit of a Western neo-noir, and it's an Indigenous cast, and it follows this Indigenous community as they solve crime season after season.
Oh, okay.
It's really good, and it makes me feel like I'm watching that beautiful era of AMC again. That's my AMC.
I'm gonna have to watch it because I am nostalgic for that era, so I will have to watch it.
You'll like it. You will like it.
So now let's go into the scandals. The cast becomes red hot. We've already talked about what happened to Elizabeth Moss in this period. We did a whole episode, so I'm not going to get into that. You can learn all about her disastrous marriage. But when you create new stars like this, right, you create the opportunity for scandals. I mean, you had Jon Hamm hosting SNL, right? Which was, I mean, that wasn't a scandal. That was just a pop culture phenomenon. It produced so much viral content, right? An earlier period of the internet. It was just, the skits were fantastic, right? Where he was telling you basically like how to be attractive and just like be like Don Draper, right? And every young man wanted to be like Don Draper. Everyone knew what that meant. He became it's so weird, but he became the ideal of masculinity. There is literally a scene where Penn Badgley on Gossip Girl, it says to Chase Crawford, "Aren't you honoring our Be Like Don Draper pact?" Like,
oh my God, I don't remember that. Wow.
Yes, which is so realistic for that character. Dan Humphrey would absolutely have wanted to be Don Draper. But it was a phenomenon. Everyone sort of thought this is a real man. He was terrible. I don't think that's what the show is trying to tell you at all. But for some reason, everyone just thought, I want a man like Don Draper, or I want to be a man like Don Draper. Spoiler alert. No, you don't. But whatever.
No, you don't.
You don't. Also, January Jones became a household name. So she played Betty Draper, Dawn's long-suffering wife, one of the suffering wasp women I mentioned earlier. He really takes a lot of things out on her. And also, I mean, she goes to a psychiatrist, and then he gets reports from the psychiatrist about what she's telling him. Like, there's abuse there. It's bad. He's a bad husband.
Can I say, Sarah, like the one plot line that I disagreed with this entire series was how she meets her end. I don't know if we want to spoil it. We've already spoiled enough, but I know.
It's fine.
Well,
no.
Again,
spoiling it.
alert.
I'm saying it doesn't matter at this point. Just spoil it.
I know.
Fine.
She gets cancer and she gets very sick. She gains a lot of weight as well.
That's
and
earlier,
then she gains a lot of weight. She goes through that. So she loses the sense of self that she had built all about her beauty. Like, that was what she rested her entire self-worth on. And by the way, that's not her fault. But anyway, and then she gets very sick and she meets an early end. And I just thought, Jesus Christ, Matthew Weiner, did you hate your mother? Like, what the hell was that? Brutal. That was the first red flag we got about Matthew Weiner.
Yes. No, I think he definitely hated his mother, because every depiction of motherhood, except for Trudy Campbell, is of mothers being just awful. It's funny because I watched an interview with him from before his cancellation where they asked, if you could meet any of these characters in the present day and see who they became, who would you meet? And he said Trudy Campbell. And so you can tell that he has affection for that character. Yeah. I think it's a combination of various things. I mean, Alison Brie is terrific as that character.
I know.
Just fantastic. So believable. But she's an interesting character. And I often say that, I mean, I don't think it would have been as cool as her in the 60s, but I actually think that largely that's the direction my life would have followed. So I was always fascinated by her. Yeah.
I can see that.
I don't think I'm countercultural enough that I would have become like Gloria Steinem. Like, I would love to think that about myself, but I'm not cool enough. And I don't even think I'm countercultural enough that I would have become Peggy. And also, Peggy gets a job because she's from this sort of lower middle class family, because she had to, right? And because people who came from upper middle class families would have gone to university the way Trudy did, but it was basically finishing school, and then someone would have made them get married, and probably what would have happened to me, right? Because she's kind of not from a WASP family and marries into a WASP family, which would have been me in the 60s, like from a professional WASP family with money, but I'm not a WASP, or I was part WASP, but I didn't have a WASP last name, and I probably would have met somebody who liked the fact that my family did well and his family had done well in the past, like Pete, and I would have married him for his respectability, and then he would have cheated on me a bunch.
Oh my God. Okay, you know what? Yeah. And you're very funny in the way that she is too. Like, I can see
sweet.
this.
I'm not as cool as she is, but
I can see it aligning very well. And part of the reason I feel like she seemed so cool, well, obviously her style, but also she was really good at kind of like putting Pete in his place, right? Her husband, and kind of just seeing it for him and the situation for what it was. She has so many standout lines that I still remember. Like, I remember talking to him about how she just doesn't get sentimental like he does. And I was like, really fascinating. Like, wow.
She's so funny because she's so much smarter than Pete. And she's so much smarter than pretty much anyone but Joan. She and Joan have been friends. They're the two smartest people on the show.
They would have.
And my favorite episode is when she kicks him out and he realizes she's known the whole time that he was cheating. Like, he never fooled her once. And that she was always smarter. And she was like, I tricked myself into thinking there was dignity in granting permission, right? Like, I was trying to be the pragmatic wife who gave you permission. And he's like, wait, you gave me permission? Like, he's so stupid. He doesn't even get that.
He was played by her the entire time, and I love it so much. Now, since you brought up, I must say, I've always, and this is more so that I've taken inspiration from her, but Peggy was my girl, because the way she steps into that office, it very much aligned with my coming into my first big job in a newsroom in Toronto, and then the relationship she has with her boss is very disturbingly similar to a relationship I had with the male boss. And the way that she eventually leaves, is partly actually what pushed me to leave and has always kind of been in the back of my head. Like, you've got to go when you feel like you're not having your own voice anymore, to the point where you know this, and all my friends laugh at me for this, but I've got her at the back of my phone case in that iconic moment when she leaves the office with the cigarette in her mouth. It's the best, and it's like a good reminder for me. I should get a tattoo of it. But like, it's a good reminder. Yeah, it's just such a good reminder. And like, even all those interactions with Dawn, they really stay with me. And I think she's such a meaningful character for women, I know. And she has been for me. She's very much a Jo March, is what I always think.
Yes. Yes, she is.
If Jo lived in this era and was in advertising.
Yes. Well, Jo probably would have been in advertising in this era.
Because how else, as a woman, if you want to be a writer and you wanted to move forward, this was one of the ways in, I suppose. But you'd really have to, you'd start as a secretary, as we know Peggy did, and go through hell.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, Peggy's fascinating. And what's great is that we have more Peggys. I mean, Matt Weiner says he's worked for a Peggy, and that was his inspiration. It's funny because Trudy's the only kind of woman we don't have anymore, where it's like a really smart woman who kind of runs charity galas and raises a ton of money, like probably like raises millions for pediatric cancer over the course of her life or something like that, but never as a paid job. We don't really have many women like that anymore. So like Dawn, she's kind of I would say the female character who is representative of that era and no longer exists, which I think
really
is
interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think anyway, but yeah, now we just have more Peggys, we have more Jones. It's not like they've achieved perfect equality, but we have more women striving in the workforce.
Yeah.
And that's, I love looking at the show and seeing, okay, who wouldn't exist today? And then who would you just have more of in the office today?
Me too. Yeah.
So let's return to January Jones, because we could just do asides.
I know. Like, God, I'm trying to contain myself.
I am too, because I just get too excited about this show.
I know.
So let's talk about one of the biggest scandals from when this show aired. January Jones. So she becomes a huge star. They cast her in X-Men First Class. They cast her as Emma Forrest. You know, that person who can become diamonds, I think is her superpower.
I don't remember. Was it ice? I don't know.
I don't understand fully. I think, anyway, they cast her as Emma in X-Men First Class. So what happens is she gets pregnant. Matthew Vaughn directed the movie. He is married to Claudia Schiffer. A mainstream theory that gained traction because she was a single woman having a baby was that Matthew Vaughn, the director of X-Men First Class, was the baby daddy, right? That was a mainstream theory. It gained a lot of traction. I remember them talking about it on Lainey Gossip. Lainey Louis, the famous Canadian gossip impresario, she talked about this theory on her site and made references to it. So, for example, in January of 2012, Lainey responded to the news that January Jones would not be returning for the X-Men sequel like this. I'm just wondering how many people have script approval, and if one of those unofficially is Claudia Schiffer.
Dramatic.
Matthew Vaughn and Claudia Schiffer are still married. And for her part, January Jones has never publicly revealed the identity of her child's father, stating, quote, "That's my son's business. That's not the public's business." I agree, but also I'm convinced it's probably Mr. Claudia Schiffer.
You know who I think it is? What was his name? The chef. Who was that chef that she was also kind of seeing here and there?
Oh, I forget. There's a chef?
Hold on. There was, you know this, we've talked about it. Let me
quickly She was also
Google
involved
it.
with Jason Sudeikis, although, I mean,
yes.
I think he would have just taken responsibility for the child if it had been his. He is a dad. I don't.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it's him. I think it was Bobby Flay. Do you remember that?
Bobby Flay.
I like your reaction. Sarah approves. Okay, so because I remember there was one incident where they were involved in a kind of car accident or there was something happening and they were together on the scene, but they quickly parted ways before anybody arrived and acted like they didn't know each other. I'm going to throw an allegedly here just to keep us safe. But it seemed like they didn't want people to know, and they definitely dated. I don't recall if he was taken at the time. He might have been. I don't know. But her child, when I did see photos, I was like, he looks like a little Bobby Flay.
Oh,
but really
maybe.
He could look like anybody. You know, when kids are that age, they can look like anyone. But that's my belief. I'm gonna go with that. Because he also seems like a jerk who may not want to, claim his child. That's also a shitty thing of me to say, but I'm gonna say that. Allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. And I think the biggest part of the scandal was just like, we are not used to seeing successful conventionally attractive women become single mothers by choice. And I think that perplexed people. Like, what do you mean there's no man involved? There has to be a man involved. You don't want a man involved? What are you talking about? Right. And it seemed like she didn't care. Right. She really was just happy to have a baby.
It was very hot. Like I became such a fan of hers, and she's also very funny. Like, I follow her on Instagram. She's so funny. Someone needs to figure out how to tap into that. She's a complicated actress, because I think it really depends on the role. With Betty, she got better as she went. Wasn't very good in the beginning.
No.
Not good at all as Emma Frost.
No.
I don't think she suits a superhero situation. I don't think people have known what to do with her for a long time. She was in that sitcom for a bit. She was better in that. She's complicated, and I like her a lot, I gotta say. And I love that she did this. And, this came just before Mindy did this, right? Mindy did a very similar thing where she decided to be a single mom. We don't know who the father of that child is. She said kind of the same thing. It's my kid's business. And I love both decisions. And that's hard to do in Hollywood, I have to imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it is time for a short break.
Hi, everybody. Steve Paikin here. The world is changing fast, eh? I'm not sure I've ever experienced anything like it in my 40-plus years of journalism. Where does Canada fit in all of this? From federal politics to foreign policy to in-depth one-on-one interviews, we'll try to help you understand this uncertain era in which we now find ourselves. The Paikin Podcast. Find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
The next scandal we will discuss, like single motherhood, is something that also shouldn't be considered scandalous anymore, but it still is. And it's Jon Hamm's stint in rehab. So this is what happened. And the details are a little bit interesting, right? So I do understand why this became such a story. In March of 2015, right before the final season of Mad Men aired, Jon Hamm checked into rehab for alcohol use disorder. So he did a 30-day program. While promoting the show in the past, Hamm had implied that while Dawn, 7 scotches a night before bed Draper, was definitely an alcoholic, he was not, right? In 2012, he insisted in an interview that he didn't drink as much as Dawn because, quote, I would be unconscious if I did. So he would, in press, downplay his own drinking, right? He distanced himself from that. That's why I think it came as a surprise to people that by 2015, Hamm was checking himself into rehab, right? So came as a bit of a shock. Listen, lots of people have been in denial about their addictions. And also sometimes addictions get worse, right? Maybe in 2013, his addiction just escalated. I don't know. Jon Hamm has told GQ that his drinking began to get out of control when he was 20. So I guess it started earlier, even if maybe he didn't identify as an alcoholic then. And basically he said that what really prompted him to start coping with alcohol was that his father died when he was 20. He describes this as just a profound sense of being alone. Okay, so after finishing the 30-day treatment program, his team released a statement. With the support of his longtime partner, Jennifer Westfeldt, Jon Hamm recently completed treatment for his struggle with alcohol addiction. They have asked for privacy and sensitivity going forward. So, all right, sounds standard, and it sounds like his longtime partner, they've been together for close to 20 years, Jennifer Westfeldt, was right behind him. Great, they sound strong. Right. And I love Jennifer Westfeldt. I really like some of her work has not aged well, but Friends with Kids is fantastic. She is a brilliant writer, director, lots of talent, good actress, very funny. So funny in her cameo in Girls. So funny.
Oh my God. Yes. More Jennifer Westfeldt, please. Always.
Love her. So Jon Hamm and Jennifer Westfeldt never officially married. They always gave the impression that they were above it. Like they were so connected, they didn't need to get married, right? Like
again,
they didn't need
hot.
that.
Very
I know.
Yeah.
I love it. They just seemed to me they were such an aspirational couple because they were also creative equals. Before he was famous, he would sometimes be in her work. And then even after he was famous, he would continue to be in her work. He has a fairly small role in Friends with Kids.
He's so good in it.
He's very good in that. And he's not afraid to be unlikable. What was interesting about them as a couple was that Jon Hamm was actually very notorious for his opposition to fatherhood. So they were very much child-free by choice. In a March 2012 interview with Us Weekly, he said, I'd be a terrible father. I see my friends who have children and I'm like, dude, how are you even upright? Much less here at work at 6 a.m. So, okay. I mean, fair enough. Like, parenthood is not for everyone. And Jennifer Westfeldt was interesting because she'd sort of said in interviews that she'd seen herself becoming a mother, but it didn't really happen. She never really felt like it was the perfect time where she really truly felt called. And she expressed maternal ambivalence. Here's a quote from the New York Times. The chance that we'll regret it, that's the quote, basically she explains, is not a good enough reason to have a child. Fair enough. So much to everyone's surprise, because they seem so aligned on everything. They worked together. They were aligned on not having kids. She supported him through rehab. The couple announced their split on September 7th, 2015. So just months after he got out of rehab and she supported him through rehab. A source told Entertainment Weekly of the breakup that Westfeldt was sort of tired of acting like Jon's mom. According to this source, Jon likes to go out and leaves a very party-heavy lifestyle, at least at the time he did. And Jennifer was sort of sick of that. She wanted him to grow up. Another source told People magazine that, quote, she was keeping a short leash, which is sexist. I really feel. Because also, why would you do that, right? Is it that he's cheating or are you worried he's going to have a relapse, right? Like, I feel like it doesn't have any empathy for her and why maybe she might have been a little bit more involved in his life at that time and might have been invested in making sure that he was on his best behavior. Okay. Despite the tabloid headlines surrounding their separation, the couple insisted publicly that the breakup was pretty amicable. And to his credit, on September 20th, right after the breakup, when he won his Emmy in 2015, Jon Hamm, his first Emmy, finally got it. And he did thank Jennifer Westfeldt in his Emmy speech. So to his credit, he did that. So Sadaf, what was happening to Jon Hamm in 2015? He goes to rehab after years of distancing himself from the idea of having a drinking problem. He is supported by a longtime partner. Then he shows up at the Emmys single, but he does thank his ex. What is happening? It's pretty erratic Dawn-like behavior, actually.
Yeah, this is such a hard period to be a Jon Hamm girl, man. Like, because you and I we're the only two on the planet who are such big Jennifer Westfeldt fans. But like, I was heartbroken because I loved the relationship. It's interesting because it reminds me too of David Duchovny, who was on the series Californication for years. And in that show, he played a sex addict. And then not so long after he announced that he was dealing with sex addiction in real life, went to therapy as well. I'm not sure if he and Téa Leoni are still together, but I thought that was really, I don't think
she's married to someone else, which good for her.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting because I often have wondered in these two cases, and I'm sure there's others that we don't know about. It has to be hard if you're dealing with this in real life and then you're mimicking it on camera and you're filming this show crazy hours all the time. Like Jon Hamm's character is constantly swigging a drink, right? Like it could have even been cigarettes because all those characters, I can't even imagine how many purple cigarettes they went through.
I know.
But I have to imagine that made it much, much harder. So it makes sense. But it's also, I can't help but get a little frustrated because he then did immediately start dating a woman much, 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 much younger. And now I do want to say he's married to, and I want to get her name right. He remarried Anna Ascola. She's 17 years younger. Incidentally, she played a floozy love interest on Mad Men.
Yes.
Very briefly. I believe the character was called Clementine. I don't remember her too well, but there you go. So oddly enough, like even that is very Don Draper behavior, isn't it? So, I do have to assume, and I know actors will always say different, but when you play a character for so long, why wouldn't you take on a little bit of who they are? Because that character, I think, also ends up taking on a little bit of who you are. So why wouldn't it work vice versa? David Duchovny definitely became a bit of his character. There's no doubt about it. So I don't know. It was disappointing, I will say. But I will say he and his new wife seem quite happy. They've been together for a while now. He does seem like a serial monogamist.
He and his wife have not had kids yet, but Jon Hamm has said he would like to. So it seems like he has really changed everything about himself.
I mean, hey, you know what? When you're with a new person and it's important to them, I suppose maybe you can change your feelings. I am someone who doesn't want children. I can't imagine that will change depending on the person I'm with because I'm pretty resolute about it. I think it's important to be because it's a big, big thing. And if you're choosing to not do it or to do it, you've got to be pretty resolute. What surprises me about this is he's 55 years old and he's talking about having a family one day.
I know. Well, you know
Men
what?
are a funny breed, man.
Men are ridiculous. Malcolm Gladwell had a kid, his first kid at 58. To his credit, his wife wasn't that much younger. I don't know if they got an egg donor or she froze her eggs or whatever. So I think she's like a finance lady. And so he met a rich finance lady. And I mean, I have like a love-hate relationship with this man because I think he's a good storyteller, but a terrible researcher. But Nail, his podcast
his personality. Yeah.
His podcast is so funny now. It's all like he's the first person to become a parent. And he's all like, yes, I watch Disney movies with my kids and I take them to the movies. And I'm like, yeah, like everyone does that. Anyway, it's just funny. No self-awareness about the fact that it is very weird that he is talking about this when he should be, if anything, he should be a grandfather by now. But anyway.
Spot on. And it's often how I imagine an elder dad becoming one for the first time operates. Like it's all so new. Lest we forget Al Pacino, legendary old dad, he's still pumping them out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's getting closer to the grave day by day. Knock on wood. I love the man, but like Jesus. So Jon Hamm, he could do it if he wants to. Could a 55-year-old woman say the same thing? No. But
no, not really.
He's got a wife who's 17 years younger, so it'll be fine. She's in her 30s.
Good for, no, not good for anyone. This sounds like a terrible arrangement, but the only one is like Malcolm Gladwell's wife was I believe in her 50s. So good for her. She's, that was more gender equitable. It was more gender equitable, I would say. And I think he's like the stay-at-home dad, basically, because, he's pretty much retired. So actually, in some ways, it's a good time to become a stay-at-home dad. Doesn't have a job. So we'll take another short break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about yet another scandal. So here's our final scandal. It's, in my opinion, the most upsetting. In 2017, 2 years after the show wrapped, creator and showrunner Matthew Weiner was accused of sexual harassment by Mad Men writer Kater Gordon. Let's set the scene. Late one night, Matt Weiner allegedly told Gordon that she owed it to him to let him see her naked. So if this happened, it's terrible harassment. This is an alleged incident. To paraphrase Don Draper, no, she doesn't, Matt. That's what the money and the writing is for. You pay her and then she gives you writing. Okay.
Literally.
She gives you, literally, that is her job. She doesn't have to take off her clothes. The writing is the payment for the compensation you give her. Seriously.
He also was like deep in the Mad Men stuff, right? Like he clearly was like taking inspiration from the characters he was writing.
Yes. And here's the thing, though. What surprises me is he seemed to have so much insight about that period and what was wrong with it. That's why it's surprising to me that he would do this. So I think he must have known it was wrong. He just thought he could get away with it.
It's mind-boggling. It reminds me a lot of, well, maybe it's too generous in comparison, but Lena Dunham, who is such a phenomenal writer, right? But still tend to put her foot in it again and again and again and again and again. And it's hard to understand that because these people seem very self-aware on the one hand, but then clearly not in another world. I think maybe it's living in a bubble. Like because your creation, your art can do so well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're able to take that on yourself. I have to assume because I can't understand it otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even outright deny it. He has gone on record saying it's not impossible that he said it.
What a statement.
Which I think says he's basically telling you this is in the realm of things I say. Right? That's the type of thing I say to people. And also, Marty Nixon, Mad Men writer and producer, came to Gordon's defense and just basically said, like, this is the type of stuff we did deal with. She referred to Weiner as an emotional terrorist and basically said his writer's room was toxic. So it sounds like he's done some bad stuff. And this is one of the rare cases where cancellation kind of stuck, right? So this happens, it all comes out in 2017. He's one of the Me Too cancellations. And for whatever reason, people are just not working with him again, which makes me wonder if there are more stories that we've just never heard, right? Because most men survive cancellation.
Yeah, I mean, there was that. So Zasha Mamet, who played that great little character on Mad Men, she wrote a memoir, I want to say last year, but one of the big excerpts, one of the sole excerpts she released became a big story because in it, she talks about getting to play that character on Mad Men. And it's interesting because it's so clear, like, there's no guessing. Like, it's so obvious she's talking about Mad Men and that she's talking about Matt Weiner, but she's not using names. And she talks about how he basically was such an insane terror and was screaming at her and very emotionally abusive. And, you know, it's devastating because I did put this show on such a massive pedestal and him because I'm a writer. I love a good writer. And I just thought, if you are such a great writer, how could you be so terrible the rest of your life? Of course, now I know that's very common and possible, not impossible. But I just think it's devastating. And it's really interesting how Hollywood can keep these kinds of things a secret. Like, there's still not many people who've outed him, right? And in the duration of the show, most of the cast would be like, he's such a genius. He's so great. But I think a lot of them were working under duress by him.
Yeah, and I mean, also not just under arrest by him, but AMC. Like Jon Hamm has kind of made jokes about how the show has 8 seasons, but they instead called the 8th season the 7.5 season, right? And they released it the following year, which to me makes it seem like a new season. But he's like, well, that's what you do when you're paying people by the season, right? Like, he's made jokes about that, about how they were exploited on many levels.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad for that because we got our last season. But I wish it hadn't worked like that. Like, I think, of course, with having AMC be this new network, having this new show, having a bunch of unknowns, they took advantage of them in ways that they never would be now. Because, like you said, they're all stars. But, like, it's probably the same way where they would work for someone who is such a tyrant. Like, maybe this is just how Hollywood is. And, like, I'm clearly working for a genius in some ways. Like, I'll keep doing it. But, oh my God, it's just so wild. I almost had a little bit of a scoop with Matt Weiner because he wrote a novel, which is wild. That the novel is terrible. It's horrendous. It's somewhere in my bookshelf here. It was very bad. And it was actually speaking very well to this sexual predator version of him because it's about a woman, and the way it even describes her and talks about the dynamic between the man and the love interest is just bad and disgusting. And anyway, he was going to come to Toronto and do like a rare book appearance. And I was like, okay, I need to interview this man. Somehow managed to get an interview, was so thrilled. This is like a man in inspiration, whatever. An hour before the event, I want to say maybe it was, the night before, something comes out about the Cater Gordon accusation. And it was already hard getting this interview time. They kept cutting down the amount of time I would get with him when this came out. And then the news just got bad and worse hour by hour as more of the allegation came out, and he wasn't really acknowledging it, to the point where they just cut my interview, but they were like, you can still come to the event and there'll be a book signing after. And me and my editor like hyped me up to be like, get one question in with him when you get to the book signing. And then I remember like I just kind of got there and I tried to cut in front of everyone. I was like, I'm pressed just to ask him. And then they whisked him away when they found out who I was because they didn't want him to answer anything. And to this day, it's like one of my favorite press moments because I'm like, sir, I love you, but I would only give you a fawning interview, but I have this one question. And of course he wouldn't answer it. They took him away. And then he didn't sign any more books. So it was very dramatic. But sorry, guys, who didn't get an autograph. Did you really want it, though, after all that?
I don't know. I don't know how online people are or if people
I don't
care.
think they were. And the news had just come out and they probably didn't know. But I will say, and I know maybe this is a terrible thing to say, but hey, it's the reheat. I'm going to be honest. He is, I think, still such a phenomenal writer. And I am kind of disappointed that we haven't really gotten much more from him. The Romanovs, I actually think, was a really fantastic show. He did that after. I think so. I know a lot of people don't agree with me.
Okay, you're its only fan. Okay, good for you.
I am.
I'd love to hear your take. Okay, sell me on it, because I actually didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a little bit of it out of morbid curiosity. But anyway, tell me your case for why it's good.
Well, essentially, the premise is that, and it's another kind of historical story. So he looks back at the Romanovs, imagining what their generations later of their family might be like, or what might befall them. Very unique premise. He has this incredible cast. Every episode is kind of a standalone. I thought it was a really cool way to explore history and maybe alternative history. And there's one particular episode involving Catherine Hahn that I think is just so beautifully written and acted and strange and unusual. And again, I think he has moments of genius. The entire season might not be so gorgeous, but I loved the concept. I thought there was that great writing again. If you want to try it, try it. It's on Amazon Prime. But I do think he has a skill and we're losing it. And I'm sad about that. And I'm mad at him for what he did. Let me put it that way. And by the way, Kater Gordon, I believe, also hasn't been keeping up her career either. And it's disappointing because she wrote some of the most legendary episodes of the show. Quite a few women did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, he hasn't really done much since the Romanovs. He had a deal with FX that was kind of quietly scrapped. So he was going to do a show for them. And if you look at his IMDb, yeah, he's not up to much. But what I'm fascinated by is, why do we think this cancellation stuck when so few do, right? Because even at a lot of events for Mad Men, I mean, I was watching a festival in Austin where John Slattery and Jon Hamm showed up, and they were talking about the show. Matthew Weiner was conspicuously absent. And so I'm just wondering why we think successfully this cancellation has pretty much stuck.
Oh, it's a good question. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that Mad Men ended and then it was really easy to kind of keep him on ice, right? Because that show wrapped up, everybody wanted it to be wrapped up. But then after that, he also has really, like, even the Romanovs, it's kind of a hard sell. Like, I think if you're not Matthew Weiner, if you're not a name, how are you selling that pilot? And I feel like he was able to get by with a little bit more steam and a little bit more of that credit. But then he probably also pitched something wild to FX that maybe also would have been fantastic, but we can't know. So maybe it's probably that. I also wonder if it's just that news got around that he's really fucking hard to work with. Like, I have to imagine that's the bigger point. Nobody cares about women being assaulted. I'm sorry to say.
No.
But him being a disaster on set, I have a feeling that might have to do with it more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of male geniuses are hard to work with. So, I mean, I think it is interesting that this happened to him. And I think, to your point, maybe his ideas that he's been pitching have been just really niche. I think that if he ever said, listen, I'm going to do basically Mad Men, but in the 90s, I'm going to revisit The Agency years later, I think that would get greenlit, right? Or if you wanted to work with, if you wanted to work with any of the cast today and do a spinoff, like a Kiernan Shipka spinoff, I think he could sell that in a heartbeat. And also, Kiernan Shipka, such a brilliant young actress, the Jodie Foster of this generation, hasn't really found. Oh, really?
You don't strongly disagree.
Oh, really?
I
love her.
I look at us disagreeing twice today. I think she's so horrific.
Really?
I think she was very good as a child. I think she was so good at Mad Men, but I think as she's gotten older, yikes. But I like that you disagree. I like that she's got fans.
I think that no one gives her the right material. And like, did you see Totally Killer?
She was better in that. She was better in that.
I thought that was very funny.
I do root for her. I keep watching her stuff because I want her to do better. So we'll see.
She's bad on Industry, but it's because she keeps getting cast in these roles where she's highly sexualized, which I think is interesting given that she's such a high profile performer that clearly she's getting different offers. And I don't know why her agent, or maybe it feels like someone is pushing her towards these highly sexualized roles, like her role in Swimming with Sharks, also so sexualized. And I don't know if they feel like this is the only way you can grow up in the public's eyes and then get cast as an adult. I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem to be where her talent lies in playing those roles. So I would like for her to play something else.
Something lighter, I suppose. I guess I find her very difficult to watch, but I do root for her. So yeah, maybe comedy, right? Something in that.
Yeah, I also thought she was pretty good on the first couple seasons of Sabrina before the show just became terrible and no one tried anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, she reads much, much younger. And I think she is a bit trapped in that, like she very much acts like a child. It's hard to take her seriously as a sexualized person, much less an adult. Sorry, Sarah. Sorry,
No, I
Kiernan.
know. I know. And it's not her fault that she looks young. It really isn't. She looks so young for her age, which in some ways made her realistic casting for that season of Industry where they're basically doing a Jeffrey Epstein thing. And so she looks like a trafficked child, right? Without hiring a child to play that role.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, the time has come for Hindsight is 2026, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of this story. So, Sadaf, what would you have done differently?
Well, you know what? It's tough. I'm just mad at Matt Weiner. I'm mad at Matt Weiner. On the one hand, I would like for him to have just been kinder to Betty. But also, I worry that if we changed one thing in that beautiful show, then it might alter other things. Really, I just wish he hadn't done what he did to Cater. I wish that he'd cleaned up his act and been a better person to work with. That's my biggest thing that I will always fixate on because he could have given us so much other great content. And I'm really sad about that. What about you, Sarah?
I mean, there's so many things. I don't think I would change anything about this show. As much as I was upset that Betty died, I did love that final letter she sends to Sally, right? Where she says, I love you. And you realize that this is a person who actually did evolve. Like she gets to the end of her life and she can finally express her emotions. She can ask her what she wants. She can be honest with someone. And I mean, it's kind of sad the only person she can be honest with is her daughter. And that's a lot of responsibility for a teenager. But there is some evolution there, right? Where she always loved her, because at some points she seems jealous of her daughter. At some points she just seems inconvenienced by her daughter. But that she really does notice. And I think it is a true admission that, I love you. And this is why you're the person I trust, right? Like this is an authentic relationship. Because I'm not sure she does love her other kids. That's the weird thing about Mad Men. I also don't think Don loves the others. I think he only loves Sally. Sally's the only one anyone loves. So I was fine with that. I also think Don's ending is perfect, where everyone else evolves and the only person who can't evolve is Don. He's the only person who, even when he gets to this higher place or what should be a higher place, he's meditating, he comes up with a commercial, right? Like that's who he is. That's who he is. It's
genius. It's so
genius.
Clever.
It's genius.
And I remember so many people were upset by that finale. I thought it was wonderful. I remember I thought about it for weeks afterwards. But no, it's just perfect because it's who he is. He's not a man who's going to change, not at that age, at least.
No. And okay, so the thing I would have changed is for this character. So I guess this is the one thing I would have changed. When I said that I wouldn't change anything about the show, I would have changed this. Pete can't get back together with Trudy unless he tells her he fathered Peggy's baby, right? Because I know he's trying to get to this higher place. And I do believe him that he's finally realized, I love my wife. I actually didn't love her when I married her, but now I've fallen in love with her and I never deserved her. And I want to try to deserve her and this family, right? I believe he gets that place where he wants people give him the opportunity to be a better man. He gets this job as a CEO he didn't ask for. It has a better relationship with his ex-wife and his daughter because he's been visiting her more and he's like, I want to rise to the challenge. I do believe that's authentic. I believe that. But he has this other secret that is going to come out at some point. Peggy's kid's going to come looking for it at some point. And Stan knows she has a kid. But that's just going to delay. He's just going to get divorced from Trudy a second time when she finds out, right? So I should have told her.
It was interesting for me because I also always thought, is this like a Chekhov moment? Like, is this going to happen at some point? What was interesting about this show is I actually started to feel like maybe about halfway later on through that, okay, we're never going to see that moment happen. Like it is just going to die. And maybe that is because that's how things were then for a man, right? Like Peggy has to live with this forever. It happened to her, even though Don told her, you got to act like it never did. Well, she can't do that. She's a woman. She gave birth to this child. It did a lot to her. It gave her a lot of trauma, that experience. Whereas with Pete, he didn't really have to live with that, right? And so I don't know that it was ever going to come forward. And there was a part of me that loved that because with any other show, and For All Mankind just kind of did something similar, but there's something big that happens and it's always going to have to show, it's going to rear its ugly face. And I'm like, does it have to though? Like, I want to see a character have an affair and that nobody ever finds out, like something like that. I think that's more interesting, and it made Mad Men more interesting because it was living in the gray a little bit. But I see what you mean, because I think for the character himself, if he's a good guy, he can't really live with himself being with Trudy if he doesn't tell her. But was Pete a good guy by the end? I do think he evolved.
I think he evolved too, and I think he would have told her. And I also just think that, like, we know that kids who were put up for adoption in the 60s, that was sort of the first generation where it was easier to find your parents. And I think that it's unlikely that their kid wouldn't have come looking for them. And so what that does is it's Peggy, the onus is on her to protect Pete forever. And even if their kid comes, she can't tell him who his father is, or her. Yeah, it's a boy, which isn't really fair to her, because what if she wants to have a good relationship with him when she meets him? I don't know. I just felt like it was necessary to tell Trudy. I even think she would have taken him back knowing that. I actually think that might have made her trust him more, because he could have said, here's the worst thing I ever did. And I think she might have taken him back because
I feel like she'd be like, well, I never have to see him, right? Like, he's not in your life. Okay, fine. Moving on. Like,
she's practical. I think she would have been, listen, I think she cares about people. I think she would have said, did he go to a good home? And when she heard that, she'd been like, okay, I don't care about this kid, right? Like, I think that she's not a bad person. Like, there's that scene where that woman that Pete is having an affair with gets beaten up by her husband, and she helps the woman and then yells at Pete. Like, she's not horrible. She doesn't want anyone that Pete harms to be in a bad way. She will clean up his messes. But I do think she would have gotten over it really quickly, and that would have made her trust him more. She'd have been like, thank you for telling me your darkest secret.
I like this extended read. You know what I would prefer? I don't want anything with Sally. I want them. I want Pete and Trudy.
Yes.
I want their spin-off where we see the rest of their lives.
Yes.
That I would live for. God, Pete Campbell, another really great character. Oh,
yeah. A really great character. Vincent Kartheiser's performance is fantastic. He starts out as just insufferable, and then in the end, he is a better person than Dawn. He's a better person than Roger. He evolves. He doesn't get stuck in the 60s. He graduates to the 70s, and then the other men kind of stay in the 60s.
So good. And lest we forget, he also dated his co-star, Rory Gilmore, Alexis
They got
Bledel.
married.
They got married. They're no longer together, but I love these Mad Men romances. I thought that was such a cute and surprising pairing. But God, Sarah and I clearly, if you haven't noticed already, we could go for another episode. Jesus. Yeah.
We could just do a Mad Men podcast. We really could.
Let's write the thesis, Sarah. I'm
Let's
ready.
do it. Let's do it. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the episode. So if you liked it, you can listen to the reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. We're not judging. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me on Instagram at Sahigian Sarah. Also, I think for Nail on Threads at Sahigian Sarah. Again, haven't made my mind up about Threads. Sadaf, where can listeners find you?
I'm thinking about Threads, not official yet, so TBD, but you can find me on Instagram at Canada Whore. And you know what I'm going to say? If you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. It helps other new listeners find us, which we of course love. And if you'd like us to keep growing, we would love for you to support us on Patreon. There's a lot of good stuff over there. Check it out. It's at patreon.com/The Reheat. Thank you for listening.
Not so friendly reminder that no one who's actually good at their job is the office bully. Like, at all. But we can handle that. For all of the no-fluff advice for getting ahead in your career without losing your mind, listen to Clock In with Emily Durham wherever you get your podcasts.